I'd like to call the Wednesday, May 16th, 2018 Papillion City Council meeting to order. Ms. Brown, would you please take the roll?
Florence. Here. Mumgard. Here. Gaines. Here. Glover. Here. Jaworski. Here. Klug. Here. Stubbe. Ingberg.
Here. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. And do we have an affidavit of publication on file?
We do.
And a current copy of the Open Meetings Act is posted in the back of the council chambers. We have two presentations tonight. One, just want to recognize National Public Works Week. Got a proclamation I'd like to read, Mr. Thompson. Thanks for all you and your team does. Whereas public works services, infrastructure, and facilities are of vital importance to a sustainable community and to the health, safety, and well-being of the people of Papillion. And whereas these services, infrastructure, and facilities could not be provided without the dedicated efforts of public works professionals, engineers, and administrators who are responsible for and must plan, design, construct, inspect, maintain, and operate the public works systems essential to serve our citizens. And whereas the support and understanding of an informed citizenry is vital to the efficient operations of the public works systems. And whereas National Public Works Week was instituted in 1960 by the American Public Works Association to call attention to the importance of public works in community life. And whereas the year 2018 marks the 58th anniversary of National Public Works Week, sponsored by the American Public Works Association. Now therefore, I, David P. Black, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of the city of Papillion, do hereby proclaim the week of May 20th to 26th, 2018 as National Public Works Week in the city of Papillion, and do hereby urge all citizens to take due note of the observance and to recognize the contributions that public works personnel make every day to the health, safety, comfort, and quality of life. Thanks for what you do.
Thank you.
You want to make any comments?
No.
All right. I really do appreciate it. The other one is Andrew Rainbolt, Sarpy County Economic Development Corporation, to give a first quarter presentation. And Andrew, I know I always do it when you get down, but just have you do it this time. Can you explain for people that are watching kind of the relationship of economic development corporations and how they work together?
Certainly. Well, we are the Sarpy County Economic Development Corporation. We've been around since the early 70s, and in the early 90s we partnered with the Greater Omaha Chamber and to form the Greater Omaha Economic Development Partnership, which is now I believe a 6-county bi-state regional economic development entity, and we work together to attract new business and to grow existing businesses. And the way we do that is to try to get people to look at the Omaha area in general and allow them to kind of decide which part of town is the best spot for them. So I obviously advocate for Sarpy County and in each of the cities within that county, but we let the businesses decide which site or which community works best for them. And so it's kind of up to the cities within Sarpy to kind of put their best foot forward, and we help you do that.
Who's your favorite city?
I'm going to move on to my presentation after that. So this is the first quarter of 2018. That's the year. And I would start by recognizing that we've changed up some of our economic indicators that we track. Previously, we kept track of the net taxable sales, which is a number that's reported to the state of Nebraska by businesses, and they're reporting their total sales, not just the sales in which they've paid sales tax on locally. So if they sell something to someone in Minnesota, the sales tax is paid at that point, and so would not count as part of our sales tax receipts. The reason we were tracking that was to try to create a proxy for a gross domestic product, I would say. And but it's a self-reported number. It's somewhat hard to track, and companies with multiple locations can sometimes change how they report their sales, and that can have major fluctuations on that number. And so we decided it wasn't really that reliable, and we were just going to stop tracking it altogether. So we thought there's other numbers that we track are more valuable to you and to us as we try to keep an eye on the growth of the county. And so I'll start with our economic indicators, which are somewhat brief because it is the first quarter. And so we begin with building permit valuations. When you look at the county as a whole, we are down a little bit compared to last year. Last year we started out, we had a record year in all for building permit valuations, thanks in large part to the Facebook project, but even without that, we still would have had a record year. So we also had a warm first quarter last year, so we got off to a hot start. You can see overall we're down from over 194 million to almost 160 million. That still would put us above our annual average, and so I'm not really worried about that. It's, I think, just some timing in other parts of in projects and maybe catching up to last year. So you can see on Papillion, we went from, if I can read this, from 51.7 million last year to almost 32 this year. Again, obviously a dip, but I think still above traditionally where we've been in the past. On new business and industrial park subdivisions, we track this number because we want to kind of keep track of non-residential, non-retail development. You can see Papillion had quite a bit this quarter, and this is overall is more activity than we typically see, which is a good thing. But it's also somewhat hard to categorize some of these things, so you might say, hey, these aren't really industrial lots. But again, we're trying to track non-residential, non-retail. And so you can see we put in Prairie Queen, even though we misspelled Prairie, but we put in the Prairie Queen project here in Papillion. And then you can see the Papillion Business Technology Park, I believe, was a replat of a couple lots into 3 lots. And same with the Cottonwood replat there on 66 and Cornhusker there. So not really regular industrial park lots like we like to see, but still kind of keeping track of those, and the activity is good. I think that shows that people are in the market. On the single-family housing subdivision side, we had a great quarter, 354 across the county. I think at the end of last quarter, or the end of last year, I think we had like 400 come in at the end. So we had a great year on subdivisions. We've been lacking in that compared to permits granted. So we're not surprised to see that we've come out of the gates in 2018 with a lot of housing lots. On the permit side, you can see we also had another good year compared to last year. We had 240 housing permits in the first quarter compared to 210 last year. And obviously you guys in Papillion had a very good quarter, leading the county there just by one house there. So on the multifamily, we had one project, a large project down in Bellevue with 130 units that is slated to come online. So excited about that. That's a number that fluctuates up and down, obviously, because housing apartment units can come in large chunks. The only thing I'll say about the labor force statistics is we still maintain a unhealthfully low labor unemployment rate, but we have seen our labor forces continue to grow. We're up above 92,000, and it's held steady. We had seen some fluctuation. And we do continue to see fluctuations seasonally there. It'll probably pop up here in the summer, but we continue to see that grow, which is a good sign because we're maintaining our low unemployment rate. The rest of this report is year-to-date totals, which is just one quarter. And then on the back, you'll see some of the larger major valuation projects that are non-residential. I'll move on to kind of our report card at Sarpy County EDC. This is what we've been working on. You can see we had a great first quarter in terms of landed projects. We landed 4. 2 of them are actually Facebook projects. They're a warehouse that they're opening to help serve their projects over there off 156th and Gold Coast. And then also the announcement that they're ready to start to build out the rest of their campus, which is something we had always obviously had in mind that they would do, but they officially announced it obviously in the first quarter there, so we counted that. As far as capital investment goes, they don't really tell us exactly what the capital investment is, and so we have to kind of guesstimate, and we try to obviously guesstimate on the low side. We don't want to overstate that, so we put it at around $700+ million. We think it'll be higher than that when you count everything else that they're putting in the buildings, but trying to be a little bit conservative there. So in all, we had a little over $723 million in capital investment and 225 jobs. We did count 200 more jobs for the Facebook project. And then we had the other 2 projects we landed were 2 smaller mechanical contractors, which might not be surprising when we've got so much mechanical contracting work going on in the area. And so those are 2, maybe not typical projects for us, but we were helpful in landing those here. I believe they were both in La Vista. We had 12 new opportunities in all, 10 new to market, 2 retention. So that's a very good start to the year for us. Typically, we're around 6 to 8 for new to market inquiries. Those are companies that or representatives that have called and contacted us, and we've submitted sites or buildings in the county to them. We had 4 prospect visits, which is also a very healthy start to the year. We see most of our prospect visits starting now. We actually had one today, and so we're very excited when we get those folks in here on nice sunny days, and we can tell them how wonderful it is here. But when they come in the wintertime, we know they're very serious. So we had 4 to start off the year, and that's a good sign. The project type that we are seeing is kind of typical for us, so nothing kind of out of the norm. We did have 3 data center inquiries, which is probably, we've been in the news a lot lately for data centers with the Facebook project, so not surprised to see those folks kind of tend to follow themselves, so not surprised to have a number of inquiries there. And then 3 other manufacturing. Warehouse distribution is down a little bit, which is kind of surprising. That's been kind of one of our leading markets recently, so I'm not sure if that is a trend or if that's just a one-time thing. And then the retention expansion are the 2 projects that I mentioned, the Facebook. We had talked to them in the past about these projects and helped them with it, but we didn't know that they were seriously going to do it right away. So we were able to open up a project and kind of close it. But we certainly helped them before we did that. So with that, I'll quickly mention I recently completed a trip with the State Department of Economic Development to Germany. I got to go along with them and visit some of the headquarters companies, the German headquarters companies, such as Kloss here in Sarpy County, as well as Grapel. And it was a really great trip. It was really more of a relationship building trip for us. The state used to have someone who kind of Germany was their territory, and he was instrumental in recruiting those companies over here. He's since retired, and so we're trying to maintain those relationships. And the state was the leader on the project, on the trip, and I got to go along since those are kind of in our territory. So I got to represent Sarpy County and basically in relationship building, as I said, and thanking them for their investment and asking them to continue to invest in Sarpy County. So one other thing I'll mention, he couldn't make it tonight, but we've hired a new business development manager, Josh Charvat. So you'll see him in this role sometime soon. He comes to us straight out of UNO MPA school, and so he had interned with the City of La Vista Planning Department and with JEO, so he's got kind of a planning MPA background there. Excited to have him on staff. One of his major roles will be going out and visiting existing businesses, doing our business retention visits, and then also working kind of projects and helping supply information to the folks at the Greater Omaha Economic Development Partnership that are leading point on some of those projects. So always good to have. We needed more labor force there, more person power, and so we're excited to get him on staff. With that, I'll answer any questions anyone might have.
Anybody got any questions for Andrew? Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks for the partnership.
Thank you.
Administrator's report. Ms. Myers, please.
Thank you, Mayor. A follow-up to Public Works Week and proclamation. I want to thank Jeff and his team in the water department. Over the last 3 weeks, they've flushed every hydrant in the city limits. Certainly helps with quality, erosion, corrosion, etc. So thank you. That was quite a chore. I'm not sure if that's been done before. So great job. Also, a quick field house community center update. The field house is progressing. If you've driven by, I'm sure you've noticed it. The steel structure is nearly complete. Crews have started setting precast walls on the southern end of the building, and footings are being installed for the community center as well. So, and we have scheduled a tour of the facility, so mark your calendars, for Tuesday, May 22nd at 6 o'clock. So council members, elected officials, please just meet at the site, and Lori Sampson, Ellie Pointer will provide a walkthrough and a progress report. I will have Ellie send you an invitation as well. And lastly, Carla and I have been having ongoing discussions with Family ER and completing the sales transaction on the business park parcel. We have agreed to a no later than July 6th closing date, which Family ER has agreed to as well. As you know, we still have 3 agreements we need to finalize. the buyback agreement, the option to purchase agreement, and the construction agreement. So those will be to you at one of the next 3 meetings. So the Family ER's team is coming to Papillion on Monday to meet with staff for a pre-application meeting, so that's a good thing. And Mayor Black and I are going to meet with them as well. So very close to closing that project. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve? Motion by Councilman Klug. Second by Councilman Gaines. Mr. Memgard, you wanted to pull one?
Yes, could you pull C6, please?
C6 is pulled. Do we have any proponents on consent agenda? Do we have any opponents? Any council discussion? Please vote on everything except C6.
7 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. Next is item C6, Resolution R18-0081, a resolution to approve a partial annexation agreement between the City of Papillion and Springfield Rural Fire District. Is there a motion to approve Resolution R18-0081? Motion by Councilman Glover. Second by Councilman Jaworski. Do we have any proponents? Do we have any opponents? Council discussion. Mr. Memgard.
Yes, if one of the staff members or you could just explain how this works. On the surface of it, it looks like we're paying Springfield $59,000. Although I don't see it that way. I see it as simply a transfer of future property tax revenues. So could you explain what's happening here?
That's exactly what it is. So when we do an annexation, property is moving from one taxing jurisdiction into another. So when we did the annexation out by Highway 50, and that area moved into Papillion city limits, prior to the annexation, from a fire perspective, it actually was served by the Springfield Rural Fire District. Upon annexation and it comes into the city limits, that service territory transfers, and so now it's got to be serviced by the Papillion Fire Department. And so in effect, that annexation took some property out of the Springfield Rural Fire District and moved it into the Papillion service territory. That property, if you think of assets and liabilities, that property was an asset to the Springfield Rural Fire District because they could tax it and get the revenue. They also had bonded debt out, and so when we did that annexation and transferred that asset into the city, we had to take a proportional amount of the liability as well. I think it was like 4.9%, and so that $59,000 represents that proportional amount of their debt. So you are right. We picked up a new asset. We get property tax off of that. That new property tax services that debt we picked up. Does that answer it?
Yes, and then internally, as I understand it, the Papillion Fire Department is largely funded by 2 sources. 1, City of Papillion property taxes, and 2, Papillion Rural Fire District taxes.
And City of La Vista.
And City of La Vista, correct. So these additional property taxes that will offset the $59,000 we're sending to Springfield, that goes into the City of Papillion's share on that side of the balance sheet, correct? And then lessens to some extent the ratio of contributions between the other agencies and City of Papillion.
Correct.
So overall, we're moving, these types of things move us more toward complete payment for fire services by the cities.
Correct.
And less of a payment by the rural district.
And it kept the rural district whole.
Yes, it actually makes them better off in their contribution to the fire services.
Correct.
Okay, I just want that explanation.
Well, it makes Papillion Rural Fire better off, and it keeps Springfield Rural Fire whole.
Yes.
Right.
And this is done as a requirement under state law.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? If not, please vote.
7 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. Next is item D1, Ordinance 1809, and ordinance to let me give a real quick intro. The next 2 items are administrative. When the final plats were filed with the Register of Deeds, there was a typographical error with the Register of Deeds, and so this is basically a step in correcting that process, so it's just administrative, and they're related. So item D1, Ordinance 1809, an ordinance to vacate the final plat for Prairie Queen First Subdivision, a subdivision legally described as lots 1 through 9, Prairie Queen First Subdivision, and to provide for an effective date thereof. The applicant is Jerry Reimer, Prairie Queen LLC. Is there a council member that will introduce? Introduced by Councilman Ingberg. D2, related item, Ordinance 1810, an ordinance to repeal Ordinance number 1779 due to an inadvertent error in the previous Prairie Queen meets and bounds legal description, and to replace Ordinance number 1779 with Ordinance number 1810 to correct said legal description. The applicant is Jerry Reimer, Prairie Queen LLC, Prairie Queen. Is there a council member that will introduce? Introduced by Councilman Gaines. Item E1, an ordinance to amend Chapter 9 of the Papillion Municipal Code by adding Article 11 to provide for the ability to create a body pursuant to the Nebraska Community Development Act and to provide for an effective date. This is a public hearing. I'll open the public hearing. This is in relation to the Downtown Public Works redevelopment. Are there any proponents? Are there any opponents? I'll close the public hearing. Related item, item E2, Ordinance 1807, an ordinance to provide for the creation of a limited community redevelopment authority and to provide for an effective date thereof. Open the public hearing. Are there any proponents? Are there any opponents? Close the public hearing. Item E3, Ordinance 1808, an ordinance to amend the 2017-2018 fiscal budget. This is also a public hearing. I'll open it. Do we have any proponents? Do we have any opponents? Close the public hearing. Item F1, Resolution R180087, a resolution to approve the Sarpy County and City's wastewater agency's proposed fiscal year 2017-2018 budget. Is there a motion to approve Resolution R180087? Motion by Councilman Glover. Second by Councilman Gaines. Are there any proponents? Are there any opponents? Is there any council discussion? Please vote.
7 yeas, 0 nays.
Motion passes. It's all the regular agenda items. Next is committee reports. I believe the Finance and Administration Committee met. Is there a report out on that?
They meet next June 5th.
June 5th they're meeting. Okay. Thank you. So note that if you're on the F&A Committee, June 5th. Comments from the floor. Anybody have any comments? Seen none. Any council comments?
I do, Mayor.
Mr. Jaworski.
I got a couple things. First thing is, there's a good chance I'm going to miss the next council meeting. I'll be in the 7th day of my recovery, so I doubt if I'll be able to get up here. But the other thing that I'm going to say is, I was at Shadow Lake Hy-Vee today, and I bought this shirt back to blue. And I think this is probably very, very important to bring up and say something that we do need to show respect to the police officers, no matter if they're here in Papillion or around the world or wherever. They have a tough job, and it gets tougher and tougher every day. They go to work just like we do, and they want to come home just like we do. They have families just like us, so show some respect to the police officer. If you did something to get pulled over, be mad at yourself. Don't be mad at them. So I just giving a shout out to all the police.
And it is National Police Week, and if people noticed, the flags actually were at half-mast yesterday for fallen officers, so thank you for raising that. Any other council comments? Just a couple of updates from the last couple of weeks. Councilman Stubbe, Mr. Gowan, Ms. Myers, and I met with Boy Scout Troop 60. They're working on a project to repair the Boy Scout cabin in City Park. So we've been meeting with them off and on since the fall, and their project planning is getting pretty serious, and they had applied for a neighborhood grant, and so we visited with them about that application. Ms. Myers and I also had a meeting, and actually Ms. Schwartz from the Papillion Community Foundation is here. She hosted it. She's taken the lead to pull a group of people together for the sesquicentennial celebration. Papillion's 150th anniversary is in 2020. And so there's a wide variety of people from the community that are starting to think about that celebration. And so we attended that, so look forward to that. Also attended the 2018 OMA Tourism Awards. Sarpy County's got Sarpy Tourism that's led by Fred Huey, doing a great job raising awareness of Sarpy for tourism. But he's also kind of like the Sarpy Economic Development. He is in a group with two other tourisms, Douglas and Potawatomi. And so the OMA is a formal organization, and their tagline is 3 counties, 2 states, 1 destination. And the nice thing about that is their award ceremony, but they've got a marketing video that they use nationally. And when that video was showed, it was amazing how many times Papillion was highlighted in the 3 counties, 2 states, 1 destination. Papio Bay was in there, downtown was in there, Papillion Days was in there, Sumter Amphitheater was in there, Werner was in there. So it's pretty amazing, and we'll get a link to that and send it to everybody so you can see that. Just a couple of reminders. Mr. Sturzman and I also met with Black Hills Energy. They're going to be doing an expansion in Papillion in the near term. I think they haven't totally closed on the land, but they said it was public information. They're going to be expanding some of their service centers that basically serves from Sarpy County down to all of their territory in southern part of Nebraska. And they're going to be building an industrial building kind of out by Thrasher for that expanded service territory. They're going through a lot of changes and consolidations, and that was one of the things they shared with us. Just a couple of reminders. Sunday morning is the half marathon 10K and the 5K fun run. Come out for that. 7:30 in the morning, I think, is when that goes off. On the 22nd at 7:30 in the morning, the chamber has the state of the county. So if you want to attend that, let Allie know and she can get reservations for that. And if people are not aware, since the last council meeting, we've had 2 more businesses open downtown Papillion. In the old theater, Green Cycle Bikes came in, and so they bought that building and have opened a business. And then in the old Bell Shops, Lon and Pat Panini's. So we've got a sandwich shop downtown as well. And then if I think everybody's aware, but if not, just point out a building permit was pulled. I think it was at the last council meeting about that time, but another building permit was pulled for an office building on Highway 370 at 114th. So there'll be a 2-story office building. So we've been talking for years about 370 being a business office corridor. And so now we got a Class A office building at 72nd. We'll have an office multi-story at 114th. And then when Werner starts developing something out there, so it's starting to define that corridor. And I think that's playing into the story a little bit of if somebody's looking to locate an office in Omaha and you go downtown Omaha or the First National Business Park, because of the low labor that Andrew mentioned, you're only drawn from the Omaha labor market. If you need the Lincoln labor market, well, let's go to Innovation Campus or the Haymarket. Well, then you're only drawn from the Lincoln labor market. We know people are living here because one works in Omaha and one works in Lincoln, and Papillion's a convenient place to live, and I think we're starting to see that in office now. Because of low unemployment, if you want to draw from the combined Omaha-Lincoln labor market, with Omaha being primary, Lincoln being secondary, Papillion's probably one of the most logical places to locate your office, and so I think that's starting to play out a little bit. So good news. I just wanted to raise awareness of that. Lincoln Road, just as a heads up, closes on Monday between the 2 roundabouts for some of finishing up the striping and that type of thing. The signs are up now, so people should be aware. But we just want to make sure they stay aware of that. I think that's all of my major updates. Anything else? Motion to adjourn? Motion by Councilman Klug, second by Councilman Glover. Please vote.
7 yeas, 0 nays.
We are adjourned.